How many people?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. How many people do we have in so far?
Let's see.
And then I'll remind all the panelists to mute while we're, if they're not speaking, just because we can avoid noise issues.
Oh, yeah.
We're at 22 participants right now.
Let's give it till 3:01.
Okay.
I'm thinking we're probably going to have quite a few more than that.
Okay, we're up to 26 participants.
Hillary, does Taryn have an option as a panelist to screen share?
She will, yes, and I'll make sure of that.
Okay, for all of you who are joining us, we're going to get started here in a minute. We have quite a loaded agenda and a lot of new folks joining, so I'm trying to give them a minute or so to get connected. And Hillary, do you know if Sean is able to monitor the chat box for us today?
Yeah, I think he'll be able to. I'm not sure if he can right away, so maybe a few of us can help out. It looks like, let's see, Brian is muted. Oh, the attendees are muted, yes. So I guess if that's the question, so you'll have to use the chat box for the Q&A for the attendees if there are questions in there. We're at 30.
Did you see Bob Seals' chat? He asked for a link. Did you see that?
I did not. No, we'll look for that one. Thank you.
I had to please send him a link.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, we'll do that. We are at 32 participants now.
Okay. Okay, I will get started, but if somebody, Hillary, if you have somebody, if Sean isn't able to monitor the chat box, I'm not usually good at that when I'm trying to get things going. Welcome, everybody. This is the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. Just so everyone knows, this is being recorded and we will post this so that the public can view it. We have a number of folks who are on screen as panelists. They are mostly part of the working group and guests that we've invited to share updates and reports. The rest of the attendees are part of our advisory group member. There's a full roster that we have online of who those advisory group members are, and they are all individuals representing other organizations and groups that they share information that happens with this group with, and also provide information back to the working group on directing priorities and helping us achieve some goals. So hopefully you all had an agenda. We have new people, some new folks from NIC, some new folks who've come in from different organizations, and we want to welcome all them. I want to refer to, I sent out a mid-month update to our working group that had activities that had happened since our working group got together in December. And I will be referring to some of those informational pieces as we go through the agenda today, just because there's been a lot of activity since we all last met. A note to the advisory group members, please do report the information that you get at this meeting today back to your respective groups, and feel free to contact me if you have questions on something we talked about you weren't clear on, so that you can report accurately to them. What's important for this partnership is that we do have good communication with a broad base of residents throughout Kootenai County, and this is our best networking opportunity to do that. We are continuing to work on the survey that we talked about at our December meeting, which we will continue to provide educational material on those housing management structures and what the upcoming poll priority that you as advisory group members will be asked to take on behalf of your groups. So please stay tuned to that information so that when you do take that survey to give direction back to our working group, you have as much information in front of you and are able to have a good solid amount of feedback based on that educational material to get back to us. One other thing is we're a couple guests that are here today, at least one is working with potentially all of our city councils on a tenant-owned program that came up through an issue in the city of Coeur d'Alene. And what that was, this group has talked about on the work group and advisory group level before. What that was is a mobile home park which sold without the tenants knowing. They could have had an opportunity to possibly get together and form an ownership group with the guidance of these companies in order to purchase and become a shareholder in a membership group that could own the dirt, in essence, under where they lived. There's going to be more information that the working group is working on. The reason I'm bringing that up at this meeting is that information has gone out to some of the working group members already to give them a heads up. And hopefully we will have the ability to work with a couple of organizations that take those tenant mobile home parks and help them legally convert to a business and be able to control their property, thereby keeping their rent prices as well as the appreciating value in their homes intact. And so that's something that I'm bringing up because it's one of the items that we talked about in our toolkit, but it's coming to the table sooner than later, and wanted to let you all know that it is something that is being discussed, and the working group's going to work out details on how that comes out to all of the other organizations. So working through our agenda, that was my welcome and announcements. I'll go to our committee updates. And Jeff Bowler was unable to make it today, but he did forward information, and Hillary is going to do a report on the school subcommittee, I believe.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So this is from Jeff. He said the subcommittee met last Friday to regroup and identify priorities after some time away during the holidays. The following priorities and action steps were identified. Impact fees. We are hearing a bill will be brought forward to add public schools to the existing impact fee statute during this legislative session. We will continue to monitor. Locally, recently an article was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on how local cities collect and use impact fees, but no mention was made about public schools. The subcommittee is working on a joint statement about how schools are funded and how impact fees would be a tool that could provide some funding through development for school construction. And they've continued to meet with local developers to discuss ideas to alleviate the strain put on schools as a result of growth. Under the school plant facility levy, which is SPFL, the subcommittee would like legislators to consider changing the term of an SPFL from a 10-year levy to allow for up to 20 years. Districts would be able to ask voters for a lower amount over a longer period of time and make it easier to use this type of levy to construct schools in the future. The subcommittee will work on preparing a resolution this spring that can be taken to summer sessions of the Idaho School Board Association for discussion. If the idea gains support, the School Board Association can begin to push for it in future legislative sessions. That's what he has.
Well, good. It looks like they've been busy, so I appreciate that. And I'll make sure that we get an update at our work group and advisory group meetings from Jeff in the future. Next on our agenda is if David Callahan volunteered. Well, actually, I think I voluntold him, but was going to give us an update on the county work and open space subcommittee items there. So David, if you've got that to share with the advisory group, I'm sure they'll be interested to hear where we're at.
Thank you, Kiki. By way of quick explanation and background, on December 23rd, the Board of County Commissioners authorized myself and Parks and Waterways Director Nick Snyder to begin working to develop a nonprofit organization to raise funding for the purchase of open space. They also authorized us to help put together a small citizen committee to investigate establishing a public land acquisition program. And then in doing that through a development of sub-area recreation districts. And then finally, they agreed to allow Nick and I to work as staff liaisons to those groups. So as part of that effort, this week, we are kicking off our first meeting with, in this case, Blair Williams, who owns Art Spirit, to begin the discussion of a nonprofit locally that we could control and again would be able to purchase open space. And Nick and I will also be meeting with each of the county commissioners individually to broach the idea of using county money already set aside for the purchase of certain land acquisitions in our open space portfolio.
Great. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. We will look for a report then when we have more information back. Blair has my understanding, some extensive history in community nonprofit building in this arena. So that's a great asset to tap into. The other thing on that is that I have been contacting some of the advisory group and work group members who had been very involved. As a reminder, when we did one of our original polls, one of the #1 items that came in that this group from citizens wanted us to pay attention to was preservation of open space. So that's what we have been working on and where these things have come to fruition from. So one of the ways to do that is to purchase that open space. And that's what the county is now looking at. But some of the other items also are, changes in policy and procedures. And so as I've been talking to some of the groups that were interested in being on that subcommittee, I am assuring that when David and the county calls on our group for support or input back to that new county nonprofit, we have a good base of people who are interested in that particular topic and up to speed, hopefully through this network, on what the options and the questions are. So thank you for that one. I'm going to share one new piece under committees. During one of our last work group meetings, we have discussed, and we'll confirm this after the next work group meeting, for the formation of a new committee, which would be led by Maggie Lyons, and it will deal with things on land acquisitions. It'll have multiple components, public, private, and some ongoing discussions on forming support, actually addressing ways to support employer-funded housing projects so that cities have a resource if they have hospitals, schools, or larger employers that want to move into their own housing operations. This group can create the resources, templates, and connections to help support them doing that. So that's one of the ongoing things the work group has been discussing, is we want to do things that are positive, pushing the private sector into helping us with housing situations that are affordable for their workers. So we'll give you more on that subcommittee. It doesn't have an update because it hasn't been actually formed and working, but as the advisory group gets together and the working group hammers out what's going to happen in that, we'll put that on the agenda under subcommittee reports. So segueing right into that, Maggie, as you all know, we've been waiting for the housing assessment that University of Idaho, Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance, and the Economic Development Corporation from Coeur d'Alene, as well as the Vista Foundation, had funded to do through the University of Idaho. It came out, and Maggie Lyons from Panhandle Affordable Housing is going to give us a brief update on that. I will tell you that that link to that will be on this organization website. It's also been disseminated to all of the advisory group partners. So if you are one of those advisory group partners right now, you should have received a link so that you can share it with your membership and everyone has access to that housing assessment. And Maggie, if you can give us a few minutes and walk us through some of that, it would be great.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. It's good to tell you that the report is actually published now, because it seems like the last few months we've been waiting, right? Another link to the report right now is through PAHA's website. So that's PAHAID.org under projects. So it lists the University of Idaho housing study, and you can download it right now. So that's active. So it's hard because I don't know how many of you have had a chance yet to look at the report. I don't see a show of hands, but I'm going to assume that most of you understand, or if you haven't seen it, maybe you've heard some commentary about it. As we've said from the beginning, this was not a solutions-oriented project. It was to assess for us, while we all know the challenges that we're facing, to have an independent assessment real time through not just the data that was available, but also through stakeholder input in Kootenai County with respect to the challenges that we're facing in our county. And so I think the University of Idaho team did a really excellent job in its analysis and its approach. I don't know that it's really telling us anything that we don't already know, but to quote a friend of mine, it put dollars and percents to what we all know. And the hope is, what we've been saying from the get-go, is that this is a rudder to the ship to help us really understand the needs and what we need to and how we respond. And of course, this group has done a really good job already, way out ahead on working on proposed solutions, because what we need is worker housing that can be afforded. And I like to use the term in perpetuity. Over time, how do we come up with solutions that really help us meet the needs, which are clearly identified in the housing report, the housing study, for about our 80% to our 130% AMI, area median income wage earners. Right now, in today's wage, that works out to be, for a price of a home, from $200,000 up to about $350,000. And that is at today's current mortgage rates, which I think is very significant, because I think we are all anticipating, and we know that interest rates will be going up. And according to the study, for every 1% increase in a mortgage rate, the value of a home that is affordable for this group of workers and neighbors in our community, it drops about $50,000. So I think we all sense a real need to figure out some solutions that will provide that housing for our workers, so that we can maintain and really preserve the flavor of this community, which is so important, because I think we all recognize that a healthy community reflects the incomes and needs of all of its citizens. So with respect to the report itself, there's a lot of data. It morphed into actually becoming the report itself, as opposed to a true executive summary. And there will be a technical appendix available, I think the middle of February is what they're shooting for, that will provide all the supporting documentation for those of you who love to go through the detail of the data. So I don't know, Kiki, if there's anything else that maybe I'm missing on this that I should share, but
nope, I think that's great. And
okay.
Hillary, I think Sean Holmes had said, Sean Holmes is in but muted. And so if he's watching the chat box and questions, that'd be great.
He's in now. We're actually having challenges with even trying to get Len Crosby in as a panelist. There was a bunch of our panelists that were in as attendees. So Sean's in, and I think everyone except for Len. So Len, I'm trying to get you in.
So I can tell you, I will mention this to the group. Steve Peterson, lead professor on this project, just a really great personality, really easy to talk to, very much understands the private market, even though he's an academic. And so he is available to answer questions, and he welcomes questions. And he has email, and it's in the report. It's provided there, I think, on the first or second, actually the second page, he provides his email. And so, and I'm available to answer questions. Any of us are, really. We've all been working pretty closely on this report, but he is available, and he's a great resource, I think, to discuss why they took the approach that they did, if you have questions about certain things or certain parts of the report.
Well, maybe what we could do is ask any of the advisory members who would like to have, maybe shoot us an email.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can invite Stephen to one of the upcoming meetings, to, once people have had a chance to absorb
and digest it.
Report, maybe we can have a Q&A with Stephen on an upcoming agenda.
We've talked to him about that. In fact, great idea, Kiki, right? And he said he'd love to do that. So why don't we do that? That's great.
Let's plan on that. Okay, that segues kind of into the next thing that we were going to talk about. One of the things that has been put together now is a PowerPoint presentation. It's about 10 or 12 slides long. It has some good talking points to it. There's about a dozen organizations that are always already scheduled to have this PowerPoint presentation given to them. The crux of the presentation is walking through the housing assessment Maggie just talked about, as well as the simultaneous work that the Housing and Growth Issues Partnership has been doing over the last year. And at the end of that presentation, there is specific solutions that are going to start to be discussed in the community with a good understanding Q&A piece at the end as to what this all means to us, what we can do, and the directions we need to take as a region to address this. I don't think we had intended to walk through any of the PowerPoint today, but it is already scheduled to be shown at city councils, Chamber of Commerce's. There's some executive roundtable groups. We're looking for appointment schedules with our college, our hospital, multiple other larger industries that have board of directors that want to see this program, our county commissioners, and anyone else in the advisory group who says we want a 15 to 20 minute presentation that says, here's what's been done, here's the crux of the housing assessment, and here is the toolkit of items that this group is working on putting examples forward to regional leaders that can address some of the housing and growth issues partners. So if you want to get your group scheduled, feel free to email me or Hillary, and we will get back to you to put you on the list. That presentation is going to be done by myself, Ginny Gilliam, or Maggie Lyons, or a combination of there, depending on how we can get to as many organizations as possible in the next 3 months. So please follow up with us on that. And the Coeur d'Alene Press has been good about talking to us about that presentation. And in fact, they are going to be our PowerPoint presentation test case. So tomorrow we will be presenting to them. And if anybody can help us work out the bugs, get all the questions answered, it's going to be a group of newspaper reporters. So hopefully we have good information that will be able to be consistently shared throughout the region right after that. So the next thing I want to move to is there's been a lot of discussion about ARPA funding. I wanted to share with you that I've gotten information from a number of different working group members, folks from other cities, on how they may be able to be using some of their ARPA dollars that will be able to, and I think most of you know what that is, so I'm not going to go into a big discussion over it, but that some of those dollars can be used to leverage other funding and other programs that deal with affordable housing. So I know the city of Coeur d'Alene has not committed to what they're doing with all of theirs, and I know most of the cities are still in workshops regarding all of that, but I did want to let the advisory and working group know that affordable housing is one of the ARPA dollar conversations that's been going on. That's really all I have to say about that one. I think Jake Geringer was on, and I'm not sure if he's here yet, but as that ties into other funding sources that we can all start at the working group level especially, but advisory group members, so that you know, we are discussing all types of resources and sources, including funding, so that we can address this affordable housing and growth issue here. And Jake was going to give us an update on what's happening. Jake is the North Idaho Field Director from the Governor's Office. And is he on? I'm not sure. If so, then
Yes.
I'll toss it to Jake then.
All right. Thank you, Council Member. Good afternoon. Quick update, not too many details yet, but I can tell you that the governor does recognize the issue in the state. And out of collaboration with stakeholders over the past year or so, at least here, our recommendation to the legislature is $50 million of the state share of ARPA funding to go toward workforce housing. And the governor's idea is for the legislature to develop a program and a fund that the Housing and Finance Association would administer that would provide for gap financing, to use that $50 million for gap financing And his hope is that this will lead to 1,000 units across the state that would be geographically distributed to make sure that they don't all end up in the Treasure Valley. That was my question. So hopefully the legislature will go forward with that idea. Ultimately, it is in their hands to create that program, though. I will say tomorrow morning at JFAC, the administrator of the Division of Financial Management will be presenting this idea as it's contained within their budget as a pass-through item. I can hope to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Do we have anybody in chat or in Q&A asking anything regarding the governor's plan?
Kiki and Jake, may I ask if that, so is that likely to go through and actually kind of implement that housing trust fund, Jake, or is it a different program that's being evaluated?
So it is different. So
Okay.
yeah, thank you for that. Make this distinction. This isn't to the housing trust fund. So this is looking at creating a new program that IHFA would administer.
Okay, great. And so then as the details come out, then information through IHFA to any requests or use of this funding will be available at that source. Is that right?
So that's the governor's recommendation at this time. So it'll take the legislature to develop that program however they see fit.
Great. Okay, great. Were there any other questions for Jake on that?
Hey, Kiki, I do see two questions that are in the chat. One is about tomorrow's PowerPoint presentation. James McDay is asking if he is able to attend. And another one just came through from Devin Weeks. It says that is 50 million, not 15 million, correct?
Jake,
Yeah.
that's a 5-0, not a 1-5. Is that correct?
Yes, 5-0.
Okay, great. And I will get back to James McDay regarding tomorrow. That is for press and media folks. So if that's what that one is intended for. So if you're in that category, I can certainly get you an invite. Otherwise, there will be other opportunities that whatever your group that you're representing is to have the presentation given to them.
Hey, Jacob, this is Sean. There's another question that came through. It says, what is meant by gap funding?
So the gap financing will help developers. My understanding of it is that it's that last dollar. So when they go out for financing to do a project, their concern was that with the return on affordable housing, they needed just a little bit more on top to be able to get the project done. And so that's where the state will step in, where they might not have been able to secure that financing outside of that. Does that make sense?
So it seems there's, that kind of makes sense to, I hope that answered the question. And it seems that when we're talking about this funding, there's just a few more unknowns than the normal channels, as this is not what I've heard dedicated to our very low income. It's a different kind of housing revenue stream that we haven't really tapped into or used before. So there'll be more groups, I'm sure, that are going to have questions that are probably going to want to go directly once all of these decisions are made. So let's plan on another update to the advisory group next month. Jake, if you can, we'd love to keep you on the agenda. I want to thank Steve Adams in Rathdrum. He actually is on, Steve, is it Association of Idaho Cities or one of the councils, and brought this forward to the work group as well. And so he's keeping an eye on that, as well as other funding items that come through the group. He's representing North Idaho, I hope, all as a whole on those groups. And we will have more conversations. I think that one of the things the work group had talked to was with forming of our new subcommittees, trying to have a joint chambers or discuss, I think it was with the somebody who was in a work group, remind me, because I did not write these notes down completely, but we had talked about the joint chambers public policy group asking if they can help keep us informed on any of the potential housing revenue sources like this funding. And Jake, do you get involved with the Joint Chambers Public Policy Group meeting at all?
Yes, I do attend those.
Okay, so I think that would be a good resource for us to get information back here, and we'd be able to stay as current as possible with the details of that funding source into North Idaho.
Yeah,
Okay, great. Were there,
Vicky, I think there was some more, was there another question, clarification on the gap funding coming from ARPA?
Sean, can you help me out with that?
Yes, that question was from Ed DePriest. It says, is the gap funding ARPA or other question mark?
Yes, the governor's recommendation is from the state's ARPA share.
Okay,
So
there was another question about Treasure Valley. I answered that directly based on Jake's response that it would be based on geographic location. So it didn't all go to the Treasure Valley.
Okay. So it's,
Thanks,
so the 50 million is allocated throughout the entire state, not just one area. And hopefully there's a group of people who are sure it's evenly distributed and we're up here, we're up north. We gotta keep that voice going, right? Okay, anything else for Jake on that topic? Okay, great. Jake, thank you. And appreciate that you're involved with Joint Chambers as well. That helps everybody stay tuned in. Okay, so we're moving through this quickly. That's great. I wanted to let you know that, first of all, I want to thank KMPO because for about a year, they have been posting all of the information for the Housing and Growth Issues Partnership as at their expense, and diligently putting together the page and the website and maintaining all of that. And so I really appreciate it, Allie, Glenn, all the group there. We have been wanting to get the public informed, involved, and be as transparent as possible. And we couldn't have done that without you. So that was a great volunteer effort. What the working group has done is we have gotten some support from the county to initially launch the ability to create the PowerPoint that we talked about that we're going to be doing a presentation on. So it's a very professional and consistent message. And additionally, if Taryn from Hecker Media has the ability to screen share, I'd like her to have you view. We have a new website where all of this information and some other social media aspects are going to be done, so that this, hopefully you advisory group people can find an easier way to get the information about this group as well as interact and engage. So Taryn, can you just give us a quick walkthrough on that? And also, I must qualify in advance, this is still under construction. This is a draft. We have the URLs secured, but Taryn and I have been working on this over weekends and nights and getting this put together, but it isn't done yet. So bear with us while we make some final changes. Go ahead, Taryn.
Thanks, Kiki. So what we have here is we have the domain name secured of rhgip.com. We tried to find something short and concise because Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership is an awful lot to type and quite a mouthful. So we have rhgip.com is where you can find the website. We have transferred over all of the information now that was on the KMPO website. We do still have some information that needs to be added as far as more recent agendas and meeting materials. But on the homepage, we do have a button here. If people want to get involved, they can contact us. We have a link here to the housing availability and affordability study here. And if you click the link, it'll take you there. A little bit about the mission and goals. We have the members of the advisory group and the subcommittees and the partnership working group all listed here. I understand we need to make some updates to that based on what I heard here earlier. Agenda and meeting material. So this talks a little bit about how the partnership meetings are conducted. And then we will post the meeting materials here, including the agenda, any supplementary materials, and then a link to the YouTube video so people can go back and watch the meetings if they miss it. There's a very handy frequently asked questions here. All sorts of information in here. And then there's also some supplemental materials that were part of those frequently asked questions. We have a resources page where we can post downloads such as the housing and affordability study and other resources. We'll have a page with blogs where we can, with a blog where we can share any updates and newspaper articles and things like that. So this will be the news spot. And then a contact page. So really early in the stages, but this gives you an idea of where we're headed with the website.
Great. And I think to share with you on the contact page, there's going to be, if I recall, there's going to be some forums so that if we have people who want to join committees, get involved with certain aspects of, there's obviously multiple directions of growth. We're focused on housing right now, but open space and policies and different subcommittees that get formed, we will have a sign up type of spot there to send that out. And so Taryn, is this site live now under this
Yes.
URL? Okay.
Yes, the site is live now, and we do have an email also that is active, and it's info@rhtip.com if anyone has questions that they want to direct towards the partnership.
Great. Thank you. And Taryn, do you have, since we might have a minute here and we're talking about this, do you have the ability to screen share the draft of just a few pages of what the PowerPoint presentation is going to look like?
Yes.
And that PowerPoint presentation, without the presenter notes, but the presentation itself, will it be linked onto the website?
Yes, we can add that to the website as well.
Okay. If you just want to give us maybe 3 or 4 minutes of just kind of a quick walkthrough of what the PowerPoint is going to look like. And I want to share with the advisory group, we had a lot of input. CDA 2030 gave us some data and slides they were looking at housing profiles, which we tried to incorporate into this. We had a number of different technical resources above and beyond just the housing assessment that we got data from. So there was a lot of information that came into presenting this. And we've been had a goal of really just wanting to be consistent so that the region has a concise and accurate presentation on what this partnership is doing and what they can expect and need to be prepared for to do in the future. So can you walk us through a little bit of that real quick, Taryn?
Sure. So this is the beginning here. Oh, you know what? I'm sharing the old version. Hold on one second here. We've made some updates.
While you're doing that, I will share with the advisory group that the closing of this PowerPoint is an opportunity for the boards or commissions or councils or whoever we're presenting to ask questions and get specific answers as to what this advisory group is directing us to produce and what the citizen input is. So there may be multiple slides that change at the end depending on who the audience is. One of the things that will happen, I'll give you a quick example. For the city of Coeur d'Alene, there are upcoming changes to our short-term rental ordinances that are specific more to Coeur d'Alene than the other cities, and that may be addressed in this PowerPoint because the other cities don't have a short-term rental ordinance. It's not something that we would talk to them about yet, but for the city of Coeur d'Alene, that's something that affects our growth, infill, inventory dramatically is how that ordinance is reworked. Our council hasn't seen that. Our staff hasn't brought it forward yet. But as an example through this PowerPoint point of what some things that are going to be presented are. At the beginning, as I was talking about this potential to have tenant-owned properties, and I was referring to mobile home parks. That's one more of the resources that will be put forward from this group to councils to say, is this something that should go to an ordinance level where we have there's other cities who have done this and put forward that they have some sort of first right given to the tenant owners if that owner decides they're going to sell that property, that they have a chance at it. So that's another one of the solutions that's going to be at the end in this PowerPoint. Some zone change requests, annexation things, infill, as I said, all of these items are things that the working group through here and multiple cities and the planners are putting together as potential solutions to what this housing assessment is telling us are the problems. So we'll be continuing to do that. But this will be just a brief walkthrough. Keep in mind, it's not finished yet. And the press is going to see the details with presenter notes. Are you okay to go now, Taryn?
Yes, I am. Sorry, my Dropbox had not updated on my laptop. So here we go. It's coming up now.
I love technology.
Yeah, me too. Okay. So let me screen share here. Okay. Sorry for the delay there, guys. All right. There we go. Sorry, the Zoom was hiding some of the buttons here. Okay, so I can just go through here quickly and I'll show a little bit of what we're looking at here. A lot of the statistics that really stood out, we wanted to really simplify it for people. And we wanted it to be very impactful. And this is a pretty dramatic representation here. Kiki, feel free to chime in here. You've been through this too.
Yes, we have. And I think that a lot of people, this information is coming out of this assessment, and this is kind of sharing with, what we know what we have, but we are going to have to address how we're going to, as a region, deal with this. And some of these are just a little more specific in layman's terms that lets you know, this is what our families are looking at. This is what our local workers are looking at. It's stuff we know, but it does put down the real facts in front of them.
And I think the interesting thing about these slides too, it shows who falls into this affordability gap. And even at $67,450, you're nowhere near what you would need $100,000 to afford just the median priced home.
At today's mortgage rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's important. We can't control the demand, but we've got some things that everyone knows. We can't stop people from moving here, but we are going to have to start control what's available for them.
And also that we've got to jump on this pretty fast because it's just going to keep getting more challenging.
I will share with you in the advisory group that, and when I have gone through these, this is a big deal. We're all starting to see this in most levels of employment, and people are asking, have you been following what other cities are doing? What mistakes did they make? And what is it they needed to do? And the number one thing I answer is yes. And the cities that I have been following, and including some that I don't even have connections to, is they're saying they didn't take action soon enough. And once the land isn't controlled, it's not available. And once you change the inability to supply housing for your local workers, you don't get the opportunity to go back to it. Yeah. Not enough action quickly enough was basically how that worked out.
And then opening new ideas, looking outside the box.
And that's kind of where we're calling to get together to change the trajectory. And this is what the working group and this partners are going to be doing for the next, all of our work is putting forward different solutions on whether it's ballot items and measures or policies and procedures that need to go before leadership or new funding and different out of the box thinking. That's what we'll be talking about here for the next, well, could be what for forever. Thanks, Taryn. We'll be working through the talking points on that tomorrow. And hopefully, as I said, if you want to have the presentation with all of those given to your organization, please drop me an email and I'll get you on a calendar schedule. I feel like there were some more questions that came in, and all I have left on our agenda is I wanted to touch base on the FAQs update. If any of you have questions that you are answering through your cities or through your groups or through your organizations, or you want to know what we're doing and how that works, please send that to me. We wanted to add the details on the frequently asked questions about ARPA funding and the state ARPA funding. So we may put together a brief paragraph on what it is, how it's going to go as the answers to the questions are known. We will know about that. So did I have any other questions in the chat box to go over where we are?
Questions and comments, I guess. So Stephen Adams, one of our panelists, asked, just clarifying question on the slides. One of the first slides, it says Idaho is the fastest growing state, but the report from U of I says we're second behind Utah. So just want to make sure that's accurate.
I think the information is accurate. I think we're looking at 2 different time frames is my recollection. There
Okay.
is that the UI looked at statistics from a different time frame. So you'll see that there's some slight differentiations and different statistics depending on where you get them and the time frame. Kiki, is that
Yes,
correct?
I believe you're right, Taryn, on that. This is Sean, City of Coeur d'Alene. We are neck and neck with Utah, but when you look at growth per capita, I guess based on our size, we are ahead.
Okay, so that, and I think we also had the discussion, just for clarification, that because of the timeframes and the overlaps, some of the dollar amounts were going to be, I think when we talked about what that median home price was, it could be off by 10 or 20,000 based on which month you had pulled the final group of data, but it was in that $500,000 range. So we may put a disclaimer in there that it's, you know, a swing of 10 to 20,000 maybe dollars depending on time, and then continue to update that. There's no way to pinpoint it with all the resources to be exactly matching, but that was the effort, was to get the most current and accurate data there.
One other quick comment I wanted to make is you had, I believe it was 2.9% growth on the second slide. If you would point out that's a compounded annual growth rate. It looks very small, but when it's compounded over time, that is actually a much bigger number than it looks.
True. Thank you. That makes, yeah, compounded growth is different than the same.
There's also, so James McDay would like to request a presentation to the Kootenai County NAACP. So that's a request for a presentation. And then I guess just a comment from Barb Neal. So grateful for all the work that is being done on the issue. Thank you.
Great.
John, did you see any other questions anywhere?
I did not. I think you summed it up well.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Great. Okay, well, for you advisory group members, remember, go back to your organizations, let them know what you've learned. If you have questions, please let me know. Share that website because we're going to be updating information there. For the working group, we have a really full agenda, and what we are going to start focusing on more diligently is getting the education information out there about how these housing management structures could work, should work, and what our options are, so that by the time we send you that poll information, you have as much information, have asked your questions, and have been able to get back to your respective groups so that we get good feedback from as many citizens as absolutely possible. That's going to be very important to us. And then the other thing we'll be working on is building the resources again of things that we can put forward, whether it be how to pull these revenue sources to acquire properties, and or how that will work and who would be in control of that, what ordinances and or policies we can recommend regarding zoning and annexation, and language that the region can use to put forward to their electeds to help with the I guess we'll call it the strategic growth plans and preserving local worker housing. We'll be doing that in the next month or two, and we'll be putting those things out to you. If you have individuals, I have wanted to mention this real quickly. We have, since the beginning, restricted our advisory group members to a representative of an organization, not individuals, as we would have an unwieldy time if we were trying to deal with just one person at a time. But if you have folks that have experience in one of these areas that you believe could be beneficial to the working group, we do invite people to come and give presentations and share information, experiences, or any other sort of helpful progress. Feel free to email me and we'll put them on as a guest to one of our work group meetings. So I don't have anything else unless anybody has a question of me. We will continue to keep our nose to the grindstone on this project, share this information, and make sure that you're all as informed and included as we possibly can. Anything else for the good of the cause today? Great. Well, we're under our 1 hour time limit for our meetings that we promise. So I appreciate you all being here, and the minutes and recording will be posted to the new website. And that is the initials, Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership.com. So thank you all, and this meeting is closed.
Thanks, Kiki. Bye.